Hey, next on the T Nation, thanks so much for coming back and tuning in to part two of this week's show, featuring two of the top instructors in our game, Virgil Herring and Fehr. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, Virgil worked with Brandt Snedeker for several years. He's going to weigh in this week on Snedeker winning the Payne Stewart Award, plus being named an assistant captain at this year's President's Cup and next year's Ryder Cup. We'll also get into some tips to help us get our swing on the right plane. It's always been something that has baffled me about just exactly how do you line up when you do things with alignment sticks and those pool noodles. How do you get them right so that you can actually get it in the slot as you're coming down through your downswing? Virgil's going to help us do that. Fehr, now, he is a two-time winner on the PGA Tour. He was also low amateur at the 1984 Masters and U.S. Open. He and I will go back to old school versus new school teaching methods, something we've been talking a lot about lately on the show. We'll get that. We'll also talk about how the right attitude makes all the difference when we're out there on the golf course and what it was like for Rick the first time he saw himself on a trading card. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. Before we get started, I want to remind you about our friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants.
Every January, PGA Tour Superstore pros meet every manufacturer, learn about the latest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls. All so they can get you the perfect fit.
All right, now back in Next on the Tee with me is one of the top instructors in our game, and that is Virgil Herring. Let me remind you about his background. He earned his degree in marketing and professional golf management at Mississippi State University. A couple of years later, he started his high-performance golf academy in Nashville, Tennessee. Just a few years after that, Virgil was named the 2003 Tennessee Section Teacher of the Year. He has been named the Middle Tennessee Chapter Teacher of the Year 5 times. U.S. Kids named him one of their top 50 instructors. Future Champions Golf named him a top 25 elite coach in 2015, and that year he won the Tennessee Teacher of the Year award for a second time. Virgil has worked with tour players like Brandt Snedeker, Harry Taylor, Brad Fable, Kim Williams, and Megan Grehan. He's helped over 220 players get a college scholarship. He's also written 3 books titled Excavated, Elevated, and the Golf Journal, Improving Your Game. You can check out all 3 of those books on his website, virgilherring.com, or on Amazon. He also has his own podcast called On the Verge, V-I-R-G being the spelling of that. Plus, his YouTube channel has several free playing lessons available for you as well. You can find them by looking up at Golf Advice and Tips on YouTube. And I'm very excited that I get to have Virgil back with me this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Virgil, thanks for coming back on the show.
Chris, thanks for having me, buddy. I'm very grateful to be here.
So, Virgil, it's actually been a minute since we got to spend some time together. So catch us up. What's been going on with you lately?
Well, it's been a wild year for me. When I became the first PGA professional to do a TED Talk last July, that catapulted me into a new land of public speaking, business coaching, and what makes it really cool is that I'm using the golf course and the ideals of playing better golf. Those processes relate to just about everything we do in life. So when you get a chance to learn the lessons of life or business while playing a game that you love, and it's been one of the greatest transformations of my business career ever, and I'm just very grateful to be a part of it. And it's been a great 2024 for sure.
That's fantastic, Virgil. Getting away from golf just for a moment. I'm a huge Red Sox fan. I saw your post from your recent trip to Fenway Park to see Pearl Jam. So let me live a little vicariously through you. What was it like seeing them at that venue?
Well, this was my 17th show, and it was the second best show I've ever seen. It was a full moon, just an absolutely perfect night. I was hanging out with two friends that I haven't seen in 15 years, and it was like that complete total chemistry of people that you care about that you haven't seen in a long time. You're out seeing one of the greatest bands in the history of music perform at an iconic venue. It was a recipe for elation, and it was one of the greatest moments that I've shared in a long time. And they didn't disappoint. And Eddie and the band sounded as good as they've ever sounded. His voice sounded better than the last three or four shows that I've seen, which is good news because I know that they've reduced their set list just to accommodate the trials and tribulations of probably being 60 years old and being on the road for 40 years. But man, they sounded amazing.
Theo Epstein, who was the senior advisor to the Fenway Sports Group and a former general manager for the Red Sox when they won a couple of World Series in 2004 and 7, he's a big Pearl Jam fan. Did he introduce the band? Did you see Theo Epstein while you were there?
He did not introduce the band. He may have done it the first night, but I saw night two. He did not. There were really no special guests, was really shocking. I thought they were going to have something, but my goodness, it was 2 hours and 30 minutes of the greatest rock and roll you could ask for. It was awesome.
And Virgil, like I mentioned in your intro, you've worked with several fantastic tour players, including Brandt Snedeker. Brandt was named the 2024 Payne Stewart Award winner. You had to be thrilled when you heard that news.
You know, one of the greatest things about Brandt is his charity and how much he gives back to not only the charity that he does for kids, homeless kids, and that have been sexually abused, but he is the main sponsor of the junior tour of Tennessee. It's called the Sneds Tour. So he gives back on such a huge level, and he is very active in both of those. And so he leads by example. I was very poor. I taught him for 8 years, and it was some of the greatest moments of my life. And his attitude is second to none. His body is just falling apart on him, which is sad. But if I can tell you right now, if we'd have interviewed the 21-year-old version of Brandt Snedeker and we were going to tell him he was going to win nine events, a FedEx Cup, and win nearly $80 million, would you take that? He would say, absolutely. That's got to be a dream. Now, I know he's a little disappointed because he came so close in two Masters and an Open Championship. I think he has like three top tens in U.S. Opens. But he has had an incredible career, and to have had the opportunity to coach somebody that ascended to number six in the world is a true honor. And largely it's because of him, not because of me. But at the end of the day, one of the five greatest putters statistically the tour has ever seen, an incredible wedge player, but more than anything, is a true gentleman of the game and a person that the PGA Tour should be very proud of. And obviously, you win that award. That's a gigantic award to win. He's earned that respect, and the guys love him. He's just an all around great guy, and I couldn't be happier for him. Just so proud of him.
It's been a big year for him because he's also an assistant captain this week on the U.S. President's Cup team. He's going to be a vice captain next year on the Ryder Cup team. You mentioned what a wonderful short game player he is, wedge player, putter. What do you think he's going to bring to those teams?
Well, he has the greatest competitive attitude that I've ever seen, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell because this tells you what goes on inside this kid's head. So when he was playing at Vanderbilt and he was the number one player in college golf, we played in a lot of pro-ams together, and we've never lost. And one particular event, we were winning by 6 shots going into the final round, and he nearly missed the tee time and almost got us disqualified. He showed up maybe 45 seconds, 30 seconds before we were going to be DQ'd, and I was pretty angry at him. So I hooked my tee shot into the trees to the right. I'm a left-handed golfer, and then he blocks his to the right. We're really right beside each other in the trees, and I am so mad at him. And he's like, Coach, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, Brand. I'm so mad right now. I can't think straight. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to hit this 7-iron up over these trees and see if I can't fade it back onto the far right corner of the green and see if we can't make a two putt, get out of here. Because the two guys that we were playing against hit it in there pretty close. I said, what are you going to do, Brant? he says, what I'm going to do, coach, I'm going to chip a 7 iron out in front of the green, and then I'm going to chip it in for birdie, and we're going to roll these fools because right now they think they got us down, but we're going to kill them. He literally chipped his 7 iron out in front of the green. I did hit it over the tree, but I missed the green just up by a little bit. And then he chipped in, just like he said he was going to do. He winked at me, and we ended up winning by 15 shots. And
Oh,
it was unbelievable because I sat there and looked at him. I said, "Is that what you're really thinking?" And he looked at me like a stone-faced killer. He goes, "Yeah, what are you thinking?" And I'm like, "I can tell you right now, buddy, I'm not thinking that. That is, and I think that goes to show like the true elite performers, they never stop believing in themselves. And he's not very emotional. Like the more the heat gets on him, the calmer he gets and the more he believes in himself. And that's counterintuitive for most people because when they get in that moment, they get emotional, they get excited, they get nervous, and all those chemicals that go through the brain, it gets you out of your comfort zone. And then what that does is it turns on the prefrontal cortex because it's trying to keep you safe from emotional, physical, or mental fear or damage. And next thing you know, it's involved in your emotion trying to perfect it and make you make a clunky, terrible swing because you're trying to be perfect. And what makes him so special is the more heat he's under, the calmer he gets and just allows himself to perform. And I let's say I know for the first 5 years, I worked really hard to really make his golf swing what it is today. But the last 3 years that I coached him, he showed me so much more about what it takes to be an elite competitor and how to prepare to win and how to think less about how good you hit it and how to shoot low scores. He's as good as I've ever been around. And it's really just such an honor to say that I've coached somebody at that level, but he is a super duper guy.
so let's take that a step further, Virgil, because that's probably something about Brandt Snedeker and not very many people know. Is that something that he's going to be able to instill in the players? And when you're an assistant captain or a vice captain out there talking to the players and during the course of a match, is that something that he can help with to help kind of calm them down and figure out a way for them to shoot the best score possible, regardless of where they're at on the golf course?
I think that one, if that's a big if a player asks him, the answer is yes. But he is such a professional that he would never choose to put stuff in somebody's head unless he was asked. He'd just be supportive. But what I would tell you is that if he did ask and they said they wondered what he would do, he would be giving them affirmative ideas based around the shot they were thinking. So he would say, like, we know, what are you thinking about hitting here, Patrick Cantlay? And he's like, well, I'm thinking, I'm torn between, do I want to bump a little nine or do I want to carry this lob wedge up on the shelf? And he says, well, he would give him like, what are you best at? And then he would remind him how great he is. And then he would tell him to commit to what he knows he's great at. And so he would be constantly reaffirming the player's greatness. And so that particular role he would be doing naturally. And I doubt that anybody would be asking him what he thought, but he would be affirming all of their commitments to be great. And I think that that's what makes him a great selection to be a vice captain. And I expect him to be a captain of both the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup in the future.
Virgil, let's take a more, a 40,000-foot look at the President's Cup, because some people are out there saying that, boy, the international team needs to win. And then if for no other reason, just for the longevity of this event, because they haven't won very many of them. They only won once and they tied once. The U.S. is dominating this thing. In order for this to be an event that sponsors are going to want to pay for, that people are going to want to watch on television, it's not much of a rivalry when the U.S. wins this thing every other year. What do you think needs to happen this year, if anything? Does the U.S. just continue to dominate it and that's just fine? Or do you think something needs to change, whether it's format perspective or something else, to make this thing more interesting?
Well, I don't know if there's anything that's going to stop the momentum of the Americans whipping them. Right? I really don't think that it's that close of a competition unless the American team is taking it for granted and not really caring much. And I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I doubt it because all these guys are competitors and they hate to lose. So I would say I expect America to win. I don't think anything needs to happen because I actually think this event is kind of in jeopardy whether the international team wins or not. I do sense there's going to be some type of push to bring it to maybe 8 and 8, 8 guys and 8 women to bring the international flavor and so many great international women players. I think that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. But what it would ultimately end up doing, we got to understand that when the President's Cup was started, it was when the international team had many of the greatest players. So it was Norman at the end of his prime, Elkington at the, kind of at the end of his prime, Adam Scott beginning, Allenby, Appleby, BJ Singh, KJ Choi. I mean, they were a loaded squad early on, but they only managed one victory and one tie. And now, there aren't many of the elite players on the international side, but that doesn't mean that in 5 years that it's not heavily on that side. It's just a question of whether people really are interested in seeing that play out or not versus what I think is about ready to start coming, which is we're going to see a little bit what we're going to in December. I think we're going to start to see Live versus the PGA Tour. And it's going to be a little bit more in that way instead of this international story. But maybe not. But I really don't think that it matters much because I really think that this event is coming down the home stretch as we see it today.
Well, I love the idea that you talked about there at the beginning of this, where we might see some of the LPGA Tour players, because I think that's missing on the LPGA side. I mean, the Solheim Cup is great, and we just saw a wonderful event, but a lot of the LPGA's best players aren't there because they're international players. They're Asian players. They're players from in Australia, New Zealand, and in those areas, and in Canada as well with Brooke Henderson. So I think they're missing sort of that component. But to see the kind of marriage of the really strong international women with the international men and our women and our men, I think that would be a fantastic event.
Yeah, I do too. It's just a question of is that marketable to the money that wants to be put into it?
Right.
If it is, I actually think that's where it's going to go. But I'm not. I don't know where the finances are because at the end of the day, it has to do with money. And
Of course.
where do people want to put their money? Do they want to put it back into what is the tried and true President's Cup? Do they want to put it into one that brings the best 8 men and the best 8 women from each side? I think that's a better one because I really think that you don't want it to be 6 and 6. I think 8 and 8 would be better,
Yeah.
and that would be great. But then I think we're getting ready to see something with this Rory and Scheffler versus DeChambeau and Koepka deal because I think that we're getting close. The underpinnings are clearly showing signs that Live PGA Tour coming together in some way, shape, or form is coming soon, and that event seems to be like this culminating point. So I think that's also a possibility. But oh man, how great would it be to have Lydia Ko and all
Right.
the Asian players and Brooke Henderson and then Nelly Korda and all the great American players with Scheffler, Schauffele, and all
Yeah.
the great American. That would just be so great. And I actually think that golf needs that, but I don't know if the money's behind it. If the money's behind it, that's coming, and I feel pretty confident about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be an outstanding event. Virgil, I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk instruction because here's something that I need your help with. I see a lot of instructors incorporating alignment sticks and swim noodles into their lessons. I've been trying to figure that out to try to help me with my swing plane when I am practicing in the backyard or at the driving range, but I'm always afraid I'm going to put it at the wrong angle. How do you know when you're at the correct angle? Because I don't want to start grooving a swing plane that's going to make me either too flat or too steep.
Well, this is an incredible question, Chris, and I'm a big believer in obstacle coaching. And the reason why I'm a believer in it is because if I'm going to tell you how to shallow the golf club if you're a slicer or how to rotate a little earlier if you're hooking the golf ball, those are words. So when you put the words in it, then the prefrontal cortex is getting involved in it because it's trying to perfect it because it's different and new. But if you put a, a foam noodle up and you're going to try to swing under it or over it, depending on what your tendency is, that is activating the right side of the brain. And the brain is not trying to figure out what to make happen. It's just trying to miss it. And that helps rewire the neural pathways much faster. And it's a much faster way of learning. So how do you do this? Let's just say, because probably 85% of the world slices it, we're going to be trying to get the golf club more to the inside. So what we'll do is we'll take a tee. We'll start like this. We'll take a tee and we'll put it 4 inches outside the ball. And then you will lay a club, like a 6-iron, on the ground, straight back on your target line, and put a tee at the grip. So now you got 2 tees in the ground, one by the ball and one at the length of the golf club, parallel to the target line. Then you'll take an alignment stick and a pool noodle, and you will stick the alignment stick in the ground 4 inches outside the ball at the same angle that the golf club you're swinging sits flush to the turf. So if it's a 7-iron, you'll have it at a 60-degree angle. You'll just stick your golf club on the ground flush to the turf, and stick the alignment stick in the ground at the exact same angle that the shaft sits, slide the pool noodle over it, and now you have 4 inches of error available to you that you could still be slightly out to in, but way better. But more than likely, you're going to be so hyper aware of the foam that you'll get it even more inside and you'll start hitting draws. And in all actuality, I use this, and I have used this from the very beginning of my teaching. I use obstacles all over the place, depending on what the error is. And I'm always trying to fix the first problem first. But usually by lesson 2 or 3, we have navigated the backswing, and now we're beginning to figure out how to transition correctly. So because we're talking about a slicer, we're trying to figure out how to make the arms drop a little earlier. All things being said, if you've pivoted correctly in the backswing with a full shoulder coil, this is going to be helpful. But if you sway, you can't get it under the foam no matter what. So we've already taken care of the backswing problem. So we got a good full coil, lead shoulders over the trail knee. And now we have to figure out how to move from the right leg to the left leg if you're a right-handed golfer. The shoulders stay a little closed and the arms drop, and that's what gets the club underneath the foam. Well, that's a whole lot easier to do if the foam is blocking you than it is to think about. And that's why I love this idea of using obstacle training, because it allows the brain to react to space, and it needs to know where it can't go. And I always say it like this. This is why we have lines on the road, street signs, and rules. The brain needs instructions on where it's allowed to go and where it's not allowed to go. So if you put the foam block up there 4 inches above the plane and you're going to try to swing under it, instead of thinking about it, you just react. And ultimately you end up changing your swing much faster and much more efficiently. And it's my favorite way to coach.
Virgil, let's build on that, because we've talked about getting into a flow state on the mental side of the game with people like Debbie O'Connell and Steve Yellen on this show before. How do you get your players out of just strictly mechanical thoughts when they play, try to keep it simple and kind of get into that flow state of mind?
Well, this is right down my alley. This is where I spend most of my time training, right? So I use Focus Band. So Focus Band it's like a headband that you wear. It's got EEG pads on the front, and it measures your brain waves. So now we have live action understanding of where your brain is. So once you use Focus Band, you'll realize that you become immersively present. Now, you don't necessarily have to have Focus Band to do this, but it's really helpful to be able to have it once so that you can actually feel the difference of when you're in this state versus when you're not, or somebody tells you that you are, but maybe you're not. Now you actually know. You have the feedback. It says, we're here. You're in the zone. You're locked in. And it feels really different. Every lesson I've ever given with Focus Band, they're just like, man, I don't play any golf from this place. I'm never this relaxed. I'm never this present, and I'm never this immersed in what I'm doing at this very second, instead of being worried about the outcome. Most people are worried about the outcome more than they're worried about things that have happened in the past. But at the end of the day, as soon as you understand how to do it, the fundamentals are you need to be able to stand behind the ball and have a clear vision of what you want to do. So you're visualizing what you want as precisely and as vividly as you can. When you're doing it as vividly as you can, that is activating the right side of your brain. Now, while visualizing that, you're beginning the process of rehearsing the motion required to hit that shot. So if you're trying to hit a little draw with a 8-iron from 155, you'll stand in there and you'll simulate the movement that produces that draw. So while you're visually seeing the shot, you're also now actively moving your body along with the visualization. And now you're really connected to yourself. So once you visualize the shot and you've rehearsed the shot, the key from there is to stand into the shot. What I call, Pia Nielsen and Lynn Marriott have done a great job of creating that visual of the play box and the think box. And when you're in the think box, that's where you do the visualization and the rehearsals. And then when you commit, you've walked across the line and now you're playing. And then another great mental coach, Dr. Deborah Graham, demonstrated in her book, The 8 Traits of Champion Golfers, that we have 8.5 seconds between the time we've committed and the time we pull the trigger to be able to retain over 90% of the field. And that's really important. And I would give those group of people a lot of credit in understanding how to use your pre-shot routine and how to access that level of flow state, zone state, because we didn't know much about it until they played a huge role, and Debbie Cruz as well, to help us understand how to access it. Because the key is this: we can't guarantee the zone or flow state. All we can do is create the environment for it to show up. And that environment starts with immersive presence, being where your feet are right now, not be worried about the outcome, not be worried about what you just did that put you in this terrible position or what have you. Where are we right now? And focusing on that, working on your breath work. Maybe that you start your motion with your eyes closed and you visualize the shot with your eyes closed and you work on your breathing until you feel like you're calm enough to feel the rehearsal exactly the way you want to do it. But once we have that talent understood, that is where optimum performance lies. And I personally believe, even though I'm very well versed in the golf swing, the greatest gift in training that I provide my players is through the mental work and the validation with technology showing that they are actually there. And once they learn that they are where the zone state is, you can train it just like you train the backswing, downswing, transition, chipping, putting, what have you. You can train your brain just like you train your right arm, left arm, right foot, right knee, what have you. And that's what gives my players a huge advantage. And that's all I study now. The swing hasn't really changed in 200 years anyway. But I really think that we've learned more about the brain in the last 10 years than we do in than the previous 1,000. So the brain is where I spend most of my time studying, and it's what allows me to help people the most, both on and off the golf course. But yeah, I think that's the most important part.
Virgil, one more before I let you go. As you know, I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm a huge Steelers fan. You used to have on your Instagram page a quote from Mike Tomlin that said, "It's not what you're capable of, it's what you're willing to do." Talk about what that means to you.
Wow, man, I'm telling you something. That's a big deal for everybody. That doesn't just happen on golf. That's happening in life. When we deal with anything, there's another one that goes along with that. It's like everybody looks at your trophies and wants to be in the winner's circle, but do they want to go through what it took to get there? Many people don't. They just want to get the result. So what are you willing to do compared to the dreams that you have? And that's really what it comes down to, is that, are you an armchair quarterback? Are you somebody that talks about what you're going to do, but you never get off the couch to do it? Or are you somebody that puts a goal out there and you wake up and you take action immediately and you begin the process of chasing that dream, and you go through what I call the championship process, which is you have a growth mindset, which means you believe that you can be trained to get better. You can embrace the challenge, which means that you recognize that you've now made a goal, that this is what I want to do and I'm going to go do it. Can you take action and get off the chair and go do it? Are you accountable to yourself before you're accountable to others? And if you can do that, now it's just basically preparation, execution, preparing in a way that it gives you adaptability. Adaptability is critical because everybody's got a good game plan until they get punched in the face, and then what happens? So, Rory McIlroy has had a really rough go of it this year, but he constantly keeps coming back, and he's refining his game, getting better and better. Now, he hasn't gotten into the winner's circle, but how close can a guy get until he's overdue and he's going to have a hot streak? And that leads us to my last one, which is resiliency. If Rory can be resilient enough to weather this storm, and this has been a pretty hard storm for him, because if you think about it, he lost to Cam Smith at St. Andrews, hitting all 18 greens in regulation. He lost the U.S. Open unfathomably with a poor putt on 16 and a really difficult putt on 18, but he admitted that he made a big mistake, which was he hit that putt on 18 not to make the putt. He chose to hit it soft enough so that if it didn't go in, he would have an easy putt for bogey, thinking that Bryson would also not make par from the junk. And that is not a good mindset of a champion. But at the end of the day, that acronym is get a pair. Growth mindset, embrace the challenge, take action, be accountable, prepare, execute, be adaptable, and be resilient. And I say that was what my TED Talk was all about. And it was, what is the fruit you will reap if you follow a championship process? You will get a pair. But if we don't get a pair soon, there'll be no fruit to reap at all. The process is what it takes. And if you're not willing to get up off the couch to do it, you don't have any reason to expect to get anything. It's the people that take action that are the ones that achieve. And that's what I encourage people to do every day.
That's fantastic. Virgil, before I let you go, remind our listeners, how can they stay up to date with you, get a lesson from you, find your books, and follow you on social media as well?
Well, the best place to find me, I have all of my teaching, all of my speaking, everything that I do is on Virgil.Herring on Instagram. I'm on Virgil Herring and LinkedIn, Virgil Herring and Facebook, Virgil Herring and everything. But at Instagram, it's Virgil.Herring. You can contact me on I do golf lessons via Zoom, FaceTime, and all the technology allows us. I've been teaching people from Australia recently. It's been kind of funny. I'm teaching them at night. They're a day ahead of me. I'm teaching on Thursday and they're on Friday, but it's been pretty wild. But you can reach me at 615-579-5190, and my website is virgilherring.com.
Virgil, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. You're fantastic, my friend. I hope we get this privilege again soon.
Well, anytime you buddy, I'm happy to go on. Please tell a very good friend of mine, Tom Patry. He and Bill Strasbaugh were the two people that ignited the fire in me in 1995 to become a great teacher. And I owe Tom Patry a lot. He's a very great man. I know you were busting his chops before I got on, but
you can't expect me to tell him that, Virgil.
No, I know, but just say, even though I don't believe this one bit, Tom, Virgil did want me to tell you, because he was very instrumental in my career, and I don't get a chance to see him enough. But please pass on my regards to him. He's a great man.
Yes, he is. I will absolutely do that. Virgil, take care, my friend. All the best in your family. I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.
See you, Virgil.
Yeah, man. Bye.
That is the great Virgil Herring. Herring is the spelling of his last name. At Virgil.Herring is where you can find him on Instagram. VirgilHerring.com is his website. Fantastic guy. He's going to break down your game in a lot of different ways and help you get better, from your swing to your mental approach to everything in between. There's a reason why he's one of the top instructors in our game. There's a reason why he's a Tennessee Section Teacher of the Year multiple times. Good guy. Fantastic instructor. We'll get him back on the show again soon. Coming up next is going to be former two-time winner out on the PGA Tour and now one of the top instructors in our game, and that is Rick Fehr. Before I bring Rick into the show, let's talk about our friends over at Squares Golf. And folks, do you sway and you're off balance in your golf swing? You know what? It could be your shoes. A golf shoe needs structure to provide stability and reduce sway. How can you tell if your shoes lack structure and are hurting your game? If you can hold your shoes by the toe and heel and twist it, toss it. Squares was designed for the perfect balance of structure and comfort. Isn't it time you tried Squares? Try the new Speedbolt at squares.com. That's SQAIRZ.com. All right, now back with me is a two-time winner out on the PGA Tour, and that is Rick Fehr. Let me remind you about Rick's background. He's from Seattle, Washington. He won the Greater Seattle Junior Championship 3 times. In 1979, he won the Washington State Junior title, and he also won the PGA National Junior Championship, which was played at Callaway Gardens, which is just a little south of me here in Atlanta. He played his college golf at BYU, where he earned his bachelor's degree in finance. Rick was also named an All-American in 1982, 83, and 84, and was the WAC Conference Player of the Year all 3 of those years as well. Plus, he helped the team win the WAC Conference Championship all 4 years that he was at BYU. He was a member of the Cougars National Championship team in 1981, along with our good friend Richard Zokol. Rick won the 1982 Western Amateur. In 83, he was a member of the Walker Cup team that defeated the Great Britain and Ireland team 13.5 to 10.5. He was the low amateur in the 1984 Masters and U.S. Open. He turned pro in the fall of 84 and joined the PGA Tour in 85, got his first win at the 1986 BC Open. Win number 2 came in 1994 at the Disney World Oldsmobile Classic. Along with his 2 wins, he finished second 9 times and had 41 top 10s. In 99, he was inducted into the BYU Hall of Fame, and I couldn't be more honored. I get to have him back with me again this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Rick, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Chris, always great to be on with you. And thanks for, again, I think last time we were on, you gave that background, and I guess it makes a guy like me feel good about the stuff that I did back a long time ago.
Well, it should make you feel great about all the things you accomplished, which is fantastic. You did a whole lot. Kudos to you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, very fortunate. I had a lot of opportunity, and I'd say call some of it privilege, but yeah, great memories of good times playing some golf.
Rick, last week I was talking to Tom Patry about how coaching and instruction have changed over the last several decades. As a player who had a great deal of success at every stage in the different points in your career, and now, again, you're one of the top instructors on our game now, how has instruction changed for you when you look back over from the time you were a junior player all the way to now? I imagine that evolution has been pretty interesting.
It sure has. I believe that most everyone of my era had far less formal instruction. And I would say that while, there were quite a few talented instructors and coaches, that has changed a lot. We've got, I guess back in when I was learning in the 1970s or so, most instructors, also had roles in the golf shop and management roles, and they taught, and some taught more than others. But now we've got, of course, and have for many years, full-time instructors, and obviously there's quite a bit more information. I just overheard Virgil talking about kind of all the advancements of how we know what happens neurologically and how the brain is involved in all the processes. So instruction has matured. It's much better in a lot of ways, but my feeling is that at times it gets too highly specialized in one particular area. And that said, there's a lot of instructors like Virgil and others that have, in order to kind of figure out the secrets, have expanded their knowledge base and have really pursued what really matters and how to best help people perform well. So instruction has come a long ways. I think there's far less bad instruction, but I have my lesson. My lesson book has plenty of people that have consumed an awful lot of information, and yet they haven't been making progress. So anyway, just it's changed a lot. I mean, I was somebody, hey, here's the, go ahead and head to the first tee and play some golf and figure it out. That was a big part of my upbringing, and so learned a lot of things on my own out on the golf course.
Rick, because so many of us have access to TrackMan data, we might have our own personal launch monitors and things of that nature. I'm starting to feel like we amateurs, like our weekend warriors like myself, we think we know more than we really do. I've actually been kind of stunned talking with so many of your peers where a mid to high handicapper like me challenges the coaching instruction because when I look at the data, it says my ball speed is X, my angle of attack is Y. So what you're telling me can't be right. Do you find players challenging you more now based solely on numbers that they're seeing, whether it's at home or on a simulator somewhere?
Yeah, I think. Wow, I don't want to upset any of your listeners, but I would say that um, something that'd be very useful for. Again, I'm going to generalize here. I feel like a lot of golfers that are, working on their game. There's those that just simply play golf once in a while, or they're not really necessarily trying to improve. For those that are, kind of investing time, money, energy, and all that into becoming a better golfer, unfortunately, I feel like too many of those folks are preparing for the wrong exam. That they may be able to answer the questions that are TrackMan related, yet the simple stuff that I think is more important to performance, they might never have looked in that direction or have been led in that direction. So, for example, when a golf ball flies a certain way, um, I am often surprised at how many golfers can't articulate why the ball did what it did. And I might get an answer if I ask the question. They might say, "Well, it's because my right elbow was, doing something." And it's like, well, that very well could be, but if it went to the left, your club face had to be pointing to the left. So hit the next one where the club face stays. Can you make it stay open more? It's like, well, how would I do that? And so I feel like in this generation with all of the TrackMan information, there may be some skills that some people aren't developing that are very important to navigate around a golf course.
You posted on social media that most golfers don't play on outdoor golf courses enough to achieve their scoring goals. We have a lot of simulator golf now. We have Top Golf. We have, again, going back to TrackMan. We have those out on the range with us. Talk about how much environment matters.
It's huge. It's huge. It's like, golf is a unique sport in that the training grounds, so to speak, rarely are the same as the performance grounds. Meaning, if somebody wants to, win one of TrackMan's online competitions, that's one thing. But environmentally, when you're out on the golf course, you have uneven lies, different grasses, wind, cold versus hot, um, and then the human element. Our bodies and our minds are not the same every single day. So I believe to be a better golfer, I feel like most people need to become more adaptable and variable. Yet people are seeking to do the same thing over and over again, and actually the science does not support that. That there's elements of movement that elite players have more variability in than than maybe a mid handicap golfer. A mid handicap golfer repeats their patterns um, more precisely than some elite players. So there's, at its core, there's some misunderstanding, and um, so I'd say, I had today, I had a full day out teaching, and um, a couple of pretty good players, and in order to get them back on track, we went ahead and had them try to vary some golf shots, just playfully, right? Make it curve left, make it curve right. All of a sudden, and then all of a sudden, they became more aware of, um, in TrackMan language, their face to path relationship and what it feels like. So, anyway, I think coaching, there's plenty of my peers that, were they to hear what I just said, would, be screaming and raising their hands saying Rick's wrong, Rick's wrong. And so, we can respectfully, have differences of opinion, but I do believe that most golfers um, spend too much time, hitting off a flat plastic surface and maybe into a screen, maybe not even seeing ball flight. And I recognize that generations from now, it's going to be more normalized, and by then we'll know, kind of how effective indoor studios are, or that sort of thing. I would say that the business side of for the golf instructor, um, there's a reason folks are setting up indoor shop, right? So it could be because you live in a seasonal area. Seattle, our weather's about to turn poor here in the next month or two. So to sustain a business for the full 12 months and make a decent living, there's maybe a motivation to teach indoors. I pay an awful lot in overhead rent, so to speak, at the facility I'm at. So, at some point there's motivations from on the instructor's side to maybe not do what's best for the player. So, anyway, I just if a player wants to be really effective outdoors playing golf, you need to train in that environment more often. And if it's a little chilly or a little wet, hey, show me that you care. Like Virgil would say, get off the couch. So anyway, but that's my personal philosophy.
You commented on Scotty Scheffler's quote about how he put too much pressure on himself to perform. He said his goal is to have the right attitude and use what he believes to be his best strength, which is his mind. I think that was Jack's best strength. I think it was Tiger's best strength. You commented that so many people will continue to look below the neck. Talk about your thoughts on Scotty's comment.
Yeah. So, certainly Tiger, Jack, Scotty, whoever, a bigger separator is what happens sort of above the neck, right? And so none of us make any movements without our brain being involved. I mean, it's, muscle memory is obviously, we know now if we're paying attention that there's no such thing. It's, the muscle moves because the command center directs it. And so, whether it be with focus band, like Virgil talked about, I have a headset of a different brand, but a wearable EEG headset that I'll employ from time to time. But whether it's Scotty, as a man of deep religious faith, and he knows he'll be fine, whether he wins or doesn't, right? So that can have a great effect on kind of his brainwave activity, put him more in that flow state. But I just don't think that that we can tell, if there was his Scotty swing is very recognizable. So we have a difficult time to hide his identity from anyone watching this golf swing. But I can't imagine anyone picking that golf swing out of a lineup of top players, whether it be college players or professionals, and say, well, that's the one that's going to clearly dominate the game for a period of, we'll see how many years, right? So it's something else, right? So it's some connection of body and mind and all of that. And so I just think you got to be developing those skills. And so it needs to be, a strong functional body. It needs to be a mind that functions well under pressure. But anyway, you're right. You're right in saying that there's more commonalities above the neck of Tiger and Jack and Scotty than there is below. And right, I don't think, and interestingly, we're in an age of shallowing the golf club is a very popular thing that, instructors and players are all working on. And yet I don't think we see excessive shallowing of, Tiger Woods at his best. The club and hand seem to travel up and down on the same path. So it's interesting. So when you get back to the instruction in general, I believe like stuff can become very viral, yet maybe not that important or helpful.
Scotty also commented on how he made the game fun as a kid by playing around the house with a ping pong ball of all things. And there he learned how to shape shots, hitting it into different rooms from different positions. You said you've been criticized for suggesting something similar. Why were you criticized for something like that?
Well, you tell me. I mean, I don't even, you probably noticed I haven't been super active on social media lately, and quite a bit is like taking a time out, trying to figure, okay, when I re-enter, what's my story? But the reason I've been criticized is that there's been some, I would say that might have a stronger influence than many of the rest of us. Let's say a large audience, and when somebody makes a statement or makes an argument, you can say so when there's not opposition. Um, People go, yeah, yeah. Everybody nods their head. That makes sense. But then, there's um, uh, awareness of, okay, well, so many people now have had some experience, whether it be TrackMan or GC Quad or a device that'll measure club path and face angle. That when somebody, assuming they're making solid contact, which is obviously a skill of the best players, that managing a path to club face relationship is very important, and that's what the best players in the world do. Um, so there might be, in theory, somebody say, well, you should try to do it the same every single time. Well, I would just ask, how do ball flight or data will tell you whether you did it well. But some people, or many people, find that relationship by exploring boundaries. So if a newer golfer may not feel the difference of 2 degrees, whereas an elite player would. So we might start a newer golfer with, okay, let's exaggerate, like hook the darn out of it, right? Just like, can you make the ball curve to the left? And I'll do this often with slicers, and it's like, I don't care if it leaves the range, right? So just hook the crud out of it, and then all of a sudden, um, it's like, okay, now swing more to the right. And so there's just different ways to achieve a functional golf swing. And I'm sort of suggesting that experimentation with maybe a less conventional way, somebody that's been taught by an instructor that says, nope, we need path 2 degrees to the right, you're 4 to the right, and that sort of thing. And I would say that not everybody learns that way. And um, I'm you there were dates attached to my golf playing accomplishments, and those were years that are a long time ago. So and a lot of the years since then, I've been in the golf instruction slash coaching space. So I've had the benefit of experience, not just as a player, but also as an instructor. And like so many others, have studied quite a bit, attended lots of workshops, learned from others. Um, and at the end of the day, you'd like to think that your approach gets more fully developed and it's been tested. And, um, I think somewhere out there on Twitter, there's from years ago, I made a comment that, I feel that somebody could still become world number one without the use of TrackMan. And so that's obviously, that wasn't clickbait. That was just, I believe that if somebody played a ton of golf and was engaged in their experience, I believe they could reach an elite level of performance that could allow them to be, if not the best, one of the best players in the world. So it's a great tool. I use it every day. Um, so I wouldn't suggest not using it, but I do think that ultimately skill can be developed outside of that context.
Well, clearly, right? Because you did, Jack did, Tiger did. We didn't have TrackMan all those years ago. A lot of players ascended to be number one in the world, didn't have TrackMan. So it's just amazing to me. So many people today, prior to 10 years ago, nothing ever existed and no one ever
Yeah.
did it. That's
Yeah.
crazy to me.
And I try my best. Like, I think all of us, there are things that are triggering. I might be, you know, I'm competitive, right? So obviously I spent a life in competition. So I probably can't kind of shirk that part of my character. And so um sure, I mean, instructors appreciate being acknowledged as being good, or if they receive some award or whatever. Um but I think that uh sometimes the coaches' goals and motivations um, get in the way of coaching a certain way, and I so I'm certainly not proposing old school, but somebody, now I'm in my early 60s and I've been doing what I've been doing a long time, and going at it as hard as ever, and I'm still learning and trying to figure out better ways to help people achieve better results and learn to play better golf. You like to think that over time you get better at it. And I just think that, I love having conversations with younger coaches and instructors, and I learn from them. I think they learn from me. And so collectively, I think the players are going to, golfers out there are going to be better off, whether they get their tips and their instruction on Instagram or YouTube, or remote coaching or in person or whatever. But I think that open-minded um, uh, coaches and instructors have a great opportunity to be, the best generation of coaches ever. And it's just there are some that get a little bit narrow, and then I would just say, hey, well, okay, they're a specialist. So if they're not a generalist. So my focus has been more to be a well-informed, holistic generalist, and so know enough about all the different areas to see how the pieces work together.
Rick, just a couple more before I let you go. And when something isn't working for us, talk about the approach of trying harder versus trying something different.
Hmm. Right. So part of part of my answer would be, what is the emotional response to what's going on? I've been there where I've been grinding and working hard on my game, and getting worse, or feel like I'm making no progress. So is it a matter of I'm on the right track, I just need to keep pushing, or do I need to shift and try something different? Um, uh, I recently kind of posted something I'd posted years ago, but that it's a quote from Tiger Woods, saying that hitting the center of the club face is an important skill, and controlling club face and getting the ball going in the right direction is an important skill. And he says that if you can't hit a 725 yards that's solid and straight, hit it 10 yards, and then work your way up, and then learn to hit it 25 yards straight and solid, then 50, then whatever. And that um, uh, research shows that when we're talking about movement patterns, which is a golf swing, uh, that the movement patterns are best developed in humans, working from slow and work your way up to faster, or work from small and work your way up to large. And yet, driving ranges are full of people that have, of course, heard about speed training, and their egos, they want to hit it far. And so I would say, in general, and probably more common among people who possess a lot of physical strength. And while it's not exclusively men, but often it's, kind of 30-some-year-old men that are just like swinging way too darn hard at their irons and wedges, right? And so if they just had the opportunity to watch, a practice range filled with good golf professionals or college players, they'd notice these guys don't and gals don't look like they're swinging as hard as possible, with an 8 iron. So anyway, but to get back on track to your question, when there's a struggle, hey, if it's practice time, slow down. You know, if we slow down enough, maybe shrink the swing down a little bit, then your brain's going to perceive and feel what's happening, right? So you're going to be aware of the movement. You're going to be aware of the little things. It helps you to reconnect proprioceptively with where your wrists or club face are during the golf swing. So that would be, as a general rule, I'd say that's never a bad idea. you know, there may be a quicker way to get back to top performance, but that path is never a wrong one, meaning it's not going to harm anyone.
Rick, I know you're a big baseball and Seattle Mariners fan. So I'm guessing when Pro Set came out with golf cards back in the early 90s, you got to see yourself on a trading card for the very first time. What was that like for you?
Well, I don't recall thinking, "Oh my gosh, I've hit the big time." There's trading cards with my face and my name on it, and my career stats on the back of it, or that sort of thing. I do recall signing an awful lot of them, right? So people would send them in, and can you please sign these in return? So, and actually, I don't recall in the last few months doing so, but those things still find their way into my mailbox, and so I'll sign and return those from time to time. But um, yeah, that's something. Now we're in a digital age, right? So I'm not so sure that's something that will somebody's necessarily looking to revamp from a business standpoint. But yeah, there was, what was that? That was, I think, more of the early 1990s, I think,
Right?
where ProSet did that. And yeah, it was a phase. I don't know what your take on it is, but um, those are a lot of. Now, if I see those these days, it's a reminder of, hey, these some of these guys are good friends. I had uh, a student of mine this afternoon who's now spending half the year down in the Tucson area and asked me if I knew Ronnie Black at all. Right. So it's like, yeah, of course, Ronnie's a great guy. I haven't been in touch with him, but great to hear those names and kind of recall some good memories of spending time with those guys.
Ricky, like I say, you're up in the state of Washington. Let our listeners know how they can come and be coached by you and then follow you on social media as well.
Yeah. So website, just if the last name spelling is the tricky part, Fehr, but fairgolf.com, or on Instagram and on X, my handle is at fairgolf. So I'm in the process of starting to shoot some little short videos. I'm going to start trickling those out to sort of share some perspective that I think can be useful to people. That is not so much swing tips, but more kind of thinking through performance and what really matters. So that'll certainly, if anybody follows me on Instagram or X, they'll be able to catch up on all that stuff.
Well, Rick, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to come back and be a part of the show. You're always a treat to have as a member of the show, and I always have so much fun when you're on the segment. I learn a lot and enjoy your stories on top of that. So I can't thank you enough for being here and all the content that you've shared with my audience over the years. You're fantastic.
Well, I think you've got a big audience and guests that really like joining you, because you're obviously one of the good ones, and um, obviously your shows are entertaining and informative, and you're a good man. So anyway, but I appreciate being on with you.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Rick, take care, my friend. I hope we get this privilege of having you back on the show again soon.
All right, you too, Chris. Thank you.
See you, Rick.
See ya.
That is the great Rick Fehr. Again, Fehr is the spelling of his last name. So fairgolf.com is the website. At Fairgolf is where you can find him on social media. Look, he is a marvelous player. I mean, every level of his game he was successful at, from a junior player to a college player to a player out on the PGA Tour. He achieved and had success at every one of those levels at a high level. Again, you don't win a national championship. You don't win all the junior championships that he won. You don't win twice out on the PGA Tour. It's like that's not a fluke. You don't do that accidentally. You do that because you're a great player who knows the mechanics of the golf swing and can help you on an emotional level as well. So that's why he is now turned into one of the top instructors in our game. Again, he can help you with every aspect of your game. So please check him out. Fairgolf.com is the website. See if you can't get a lesson from him. If you're anywhere up in the Pacific Northwest, get in touch with him there. And VH1 or V1 and all of that sort of thing is available for you as well. So get in touch with Rick. Let him help you with your golf game. He's going to make you a better player, and you're going to enjoy the game a heck of a lot more. So I can't thank him enough. He's been a wonderful guest. Tonight was the 4th time that I've got the privilege of having him on the show. So I look forward to catching up with him again. Hopefully, like I say, very, very soon. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this week's edition of Next on the Tee. Want to send out my sincere thanks once again to Steelers legend Greg Lloyd, Dr. Kathy Heft, Virgil Herring, and Rick Fehr for joining me this week. Scheduled to join me next week as we kick off the month of October is going to be another Steelers legend, Rocky Bleier, one of the all-time great storytellers and obviously a great player. He'll be here. We'll get our regular monthly visit from the Confidence Doctor, Dr. Bob Winters. Another one of the top 100 instructors in our game, Tom Stickney, will be here, and we'll get a long overdue return visit from John Decker, the Director of Instruction at the Medallion Club in Westerville, Ohio, and the 2015 Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year. So, folks, it's going to be a big week next week. Now, I hope you come back and be a part of the show with us. I want to thank our friends again over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review for hosting this show on their site. For coverage of everything going on in Western Pennsylvania, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com. You can find this show by clicking on the Sports Section tab, and you're going to find the most recent episode of the show front and center for you there, right there on the homepage of the Sports Section. If you click on Sports and then Podcast Network, and then you'll see the Next on the Tee logo. Click on that, and you're going to be able to find several of the most recent episodes available for you there as well. And I know that you guys know that you can find the show pretty much anywhere you get your podcast content, including over on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. Your favorite one, we're probably on that one too. And a huge thank you to our friends over on Good Pods for making this show one of their recommended podcasts. So please download their free app and stream your favorite podcast right there on Good Pods on your favorite device. But like I say each and every week, the biggest thanks go out to all of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much for tuning in each and every week. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.